Welcome to part 2 of the learnopenstack.info tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to build a single virtual machine that runs all of OpenStack. So here I'm just showing you the virtual machine that was built in tutorial 1. And you can see we're just going to have a look at the build command that's in one of the shell scripts. We'll do a packer build. This packer build will build a all-in-one virtual machine which is ready to do a deployment. I just had to do a quick refresh of the source there just to make sure I was up to the latest version. We'll perform the packer build now. This build will take the OVF file that we created from the original base image and go through a series of scripts and set up the all-in-one server. This part has been sped up as it takes around 5 minutes to run most of the commands. And this now gets exported as another OVF file, and you can see we cd into the folder and have a look. The next step is to import that image into VirtualBox. The import doesn't take too long. Again, this creates a copy of the virtual machine. Now the next steps really sets up the networking for this virtual machine. As you can see on my Mac, I've got the main wireless connection there. I've copied the name of that connection, which we'll use later to configure via the command line. So we can run the modify VM command using vbox manage, and we set the first network interface to bridged mode, and we set the adapter to the same name as the one we just copied. You have to get this name correct. If it's incorrect, it can cause some strange behavior with VirtualBox. I'm also setting promiscuous mode on. And the last step here is to actually start the virtual machine. Now at this point, we just need to find the IP address of the all-in-one server. There's a few ways you can do it. The simplest way is probably just to ping the name all-in-one, just to make sure it's got a local IP. Now we can SSH into that machine using username Vagrant, password Vagrant. Once you're on the machine, just run a few more commands, and this will actually start the installation of all the OpenStack components. So the opt OpenStack Ansible folder is all the installation scripts. So the first script is more of a setup script, really. Preps the machine ready to do an all-in-one installation. This doesn't take too long to run, and the next command that we're going to run will be the actual running of all the Ansible playbooks that does the setup. Now that takes a long time, so I've skipped to the end, but expect it to take about 40 minutes to run. After the OpenStack Ansible installation is complete, you'll see a screen that looks like this. Now we can have a look inside one of the OpenStack user config YAML file that's generated at install. If we grep for the word external, we'll see that its external load balancer address should be the same IP address as the machine. Now we want to do a quick change here to how SSH is configured. If we edit the SSHD config, we want to turn the password authentication back on. It the installation turns it off. It just makes it a bit difficult to SSH back into the machine. So I just turn it back to yes, save and quit. And then for these changes to take effect, you want to restart the SSHD daemon. The other file we want to take a look at contains all the passwords that are generated during the installation. The most important password you want to grab is the admin password that we can use to log in. So if you grep for the word keystone, you'll see a row that says keystone auth admin password. Just copy that and put that somewhere safe. In this case, I'll just put it into a text editor to use later. Now, one last thing that we want to do before we access our OpenStack environment is to add a route. Now, what we want to do there is add a route to 172.29.248/22 and set the target IP address to the IP address of your new OpenStack all-in-one server. In that case, it was 192.168.0.78. Now, I open up two browsers. On one browser, I'll log in with the username demo, password demo, and on the other browser, I log in with the username admin and with the admin password we got before. Now the admin user has all admin rights. The demo user is more like a standard user, what they would normally see. Now once you've logged in as the admin, we can edit one of the networks. What we'll do here is set up the DNS server. So this private subnet, when we create a virtual machine, we'll be joining this subnet. We want to go into the subnet details and add just the Google DNS servers here. Otherwise they won't be able to resolve external names. Now, with the user, the demo user, we'll go in and create ourselves a key pair. You can call this whatever you want. Call this one demo key pair in this instance. You can see there's no VMs running at the moment. What we do want to do though is quite important, is add 2 extra rules into our security group. This lets us ping the box and SSH into the box once we create it. So just go in and create an all ICMP rule, an ingress rule, and then create a SSH ingress rule. It's pretty straightforward. Now we're actually going to create a virtual machine. Now when you install OpenStack from scratch, it gives you a mini operating system called Syros. So we'll go in, type in an instance name, and then we'll select the Syros image from the bottom there. It's a very small image. And then we select Tempest 1. We'll select that private subnet. Our key pair is automatically selected, and then you can just click Launch Instance. So this is a little slower than usual. Generally they provision a lot quicker than this, but what this is doing now is creating a new virtual machine from that Syros image. It's joining it to that private subnet, and it will get an IP address that's local to that private subnet. Now once that server is provisioned, there's no way to get to it from the outside world, and the way to do that is to associate a floating IP. So a floating IP is an IP address we can access from our laptop. The route we set up then lets our laptop talk onto the box, onto that floating IP. So you can see it's got an IP address there, but that's not one we care about. We want to go in and click on Associate Floating IP, and then we click on the plus button there to get a new IP that we can assign to the box. You can see we've got a quota there of 50 IP addresses. And then click associate. And what it does is it creates a new floating IP and allocates it to that machine. And that's its public IP address. That's how we talk to it from the outside world. The outside world in this case is just a laptop. Now we can SSH into that box. I make a bit of a mistake here and use the private IP address. That's not going to work, as you see. The username is Siros for these images, and password's Cubs win with a smiley face. There you go. If we use the floating IP, SSH into that, should let us in. Type in the correct password. Now you can have a look at the box. It's a very, very simplified Linux box. There's not a huge amount you can do on it, but you can check its IP routing tables. You can try and ping the outside world, so the DNS resolution's working. You can talk out, you can talk in. So the box essentially is operating as you'd expect on the network. You can check its config. As you can see, its IP address is just that private IP. It doesn't really know that its public IP exists. And then you can exit back out. And that about wraps up tutorial 2. Thanks for joining me. By this stage now you have a running OpenStack instance. In this tutorial I just showed you how to do a very basic task of getting a virtual machine up and running, how to talk into it, how to get it talking out to the real world. It is really important to set up that route. Please go to learnopenstack.info website. It contains all the commands if you want to copy and paste them into your terminal window. And feel free to explore the rest of the OpenStack installation. There's a lot more, and I'll probably be making another video that shows you how to explore other areas of OpenStack. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.